Hey there, it's Angela Watson. I just wanted to let you know that Truth for Teachers is going to be back next Sunday, August 12th. And I'm going to give you a little sneak peek into what's coming up this season on Truth for Teachers. This is going to be season number 7 at this point. And initially, I was just going to record this little bit of info at the beginning of next week's episode. And then it started to get a little bit lengthy, and I realized I should probably do this separately because those of you who are big fans of the podcast will be interested in this stuff, and everyone else who's just tuning in for that episode's topic is not going to be interested. So I won't burden them with having to sit through this before they can get to the content that starts next week. But I know that some of you really want to hear what's coming up and what to expect. So there's a couple of things that I'm really trying to get done in the next few months. I'm trying to finish up this set of emergency subplans. So it's a set of emergency subplans for the whole year. So 10 days worth of plans. So if you have to be out for any reason and, you don't have time to go into school and prepare everything, these are completely no prep, no materials needed. And I'm doing them for grades K to 12. It's a really, really big project. I've had a lot of classroom teachers helping me with it over the summer, but I need to sort of wrap that stuff up and get that done this month. So that's my goal here in August. And another big thing that I'm trying to get done is I'm really trying to finish writing this book. I told you all about it in the last season of the podcast, my Fewer Things Better book. And it's going a little bit slower than I had hoped. It's been on the back burner just because of other things going on. But starting in September, I'm really going to go hard with trying to finish it because I want to launch that book this fall. So the reason why I'm sharing that with you here as podcast listeners is because I really need to be devoting the majority of my mental focus to getting this book out. And sometimes the podcast can take hours and hours and hours every single week. So you probably won't notice a difference between this season and past seasons, but if you're a serious Truth for Teachers listener, you're a big super fan, you've listened to every episode, you might notice that these episodes will be slightly shorter. At least I'm hoping they'll be slightly shorter. That's being succinct is not exactly a strength of mine, but that's what's kind of happened with the podcast. Initially, my vision was to have something that was just 10 to 15 minutes every single week. And I feel like it's gotten longer and longer and longer to the point where now like 30 to 45 minute episodes are the norm, and an hour-long episode is not really out of the question anymore. But I know that a lot of you really like the shorter episodes anyway. So I'm going to try to do more of those this season, more around the 15-minute, maybe 20-minute max mark. So that will help. I'm also going to do fewer interviews and fewer guests this season because it just takes a lot of time to coordinate it. It requires a lot more editing afterwards. Post-production is a lot more time intensive, and I've got to get the whole thing transcribed. So I think there's going to be more solo episodes this podcast season. I also plan to do more episodes that are just sort of from the heart. There are some episodes that I do that just take hours and hours of research and prep and, interviewing people and fact checking and all that kind of stuff. And then there's others that I just sort of outline in 15 minutes or so and just riff off of it. And I've never seen any sort of correlation between the amount of time and effort that I put into a podcast episode and its reception to what you all think about it. There's been episodes that I've spent upwards of like 25 hours on that didn't resonate with people any more than episodes that I just sort of cranked right out in terms of, when I look at downloads or when I look at, how long people listen to the episodes. It's not really much of a difference. So as much as I would like to do more practical classroom-based strategy type of episodes and things like that, I don't think I'm going to be doing very much of that this season. Probably next season, which will start up in January, I'll be able to get back into that sort of thing. But this season of the podcast, I'm really experimenting with short and sweet and speaking from the heart versus highly researched and formalized. And I think I may throw in a couple episodes also that I think are a little bit more personal too and less related to teaching. I feel like podcasts have sort of exploded in the last couple of years, right? Like, doesn't it feel like everyone that you follow online now has a podcast? And you may be listening to podcasts by celebrities, authors, maybe sports podcasts, just all kinds of different topics. And I'm guessing you like to hear about things other than teaching. And I like to talk about things other than teaching. I care about things that aren't necessarily directly related to the classroom. So I'm not going to go way off topic or way off message here, but I do think that in 130 episodes so far, I've already covered a lot of education-related topics. And I acknowledge the fact that you are a human being with a life apart from teaching. And I have a life apart from education as well. So I think some of you have been listening to me for a long time and you feel like you know me. And you might kind of enjoy having me speak to you more like a friend and less like someone who is delivering professional development to you or trying to teach you something. Sometimes I feel pressure to make these episodes a little bit more formal or just something that's super useful because I know that there are schools that use this for PD. They will actually play the episode during a faculty meeting or they'll have the teachers listen to it at home and then they discuss it together in their professional development sessions. And I think that's fantastic. It's amazing, but I didn't set out to create those episodes with that intention in mind, right? And I don't feel like I can produce a PD quality brand new episode of solid research-backed information every single week. And I really don't have any desire to do that either. So it's a really tricky balance because some of the episodes of the season, this coming season especially, really are not going to work for that sort of professional context. So anyway, that's where my head is at. And I'm just grateful that you are here. You're coming along on this ride with me. And it feels really good to be sort of back in this podcast saddle and talking to you all again. So I always try to map out the whole season before I begin recording because I like to try to switch up the different formats and the different episode topics so that I'm not talking about the same thing too much back to back. And I mean, I do play around with it a little bit. There's always last minute adjustments and that sort of thing. But I usually have a general idea of what's coming up for future episodes. So I'll share some of that with you. I know for sure that one of the things that I'll be talking about this season is trauma-informed teaching, because I think that's super important. That's definitely going to be one of the interview ones, one of the more highly researched ones, because I think it's just really critical for teachers to have info about that right now. I also have a really great interview that's already been recorded. It's with Travis Bristol, and he's talking about attracting and retaining teachers of color in our schools. And that's an issue that I also think is really important. He's going to be talking about what individual teachers can do to make sure that they have a diverse teaching staff. We're talking about why that's so important, how that benefits kids, and just making sure that all teachers feel welcome in their school. So I think that's going to be a really great episode too. So that's done. I'm just really excited to release that to you soon. We have another episode of the Productivity Roundtable coming up too. We did an extra one back in the spring. They are going to be talking about differentiation, how to make differentiation less time consuming. So that's pretty awesome. Excited to share that one with you. I'll also be sharing with you some excerpts from my Fewer Things Better book as I'm working on it. So you'll get some sneak peeks at that. We're going to be talking about limiting beliefs about kids. There's one on making time for self-care. So lots of good stuff coming up. And then I have a surprise too. I'm also going to try a new format for an episode. So you'll just have to watch and see what that is because I haven't worked out all the details yet. So lots of good stuff coming up. That's just a little sneak peek about what to expect in this upcoming podcast season. So I'll be back with you next week. Next week will be the official start where we'll go back to our regularly scheduled weekly Sunday episode. It's going to be a message of encouragement to you during this crazy, hectic back to school season. I know that many of you, by the time you're listening to this, school will have already started. So that's not going to be an episode that is necessarily preparing you for the first day. But, you know, the first even 6 weeks of school are just really tiring because you're trying to get to know your kids and their families. And there's just so many different systems and things to set up. So I'm going to give you a message next week that will help you stay focused on what really matters, what's really going to make an impact for this coming school year. And if you are already in full swing mode of back to school and you need something right now, there's a couple previous episodes that you may want to go back to. There's episode 100 that is addressing the back to school teacher jitters. So if you're just feeling really anxious about it, check that out. Episode 100. What if my students don't like me and we don't connect? Overcoming back to school teacher jitters. There's also episode 101, which is called Stay Reflective on the Why and Avoid Comparison. Your classroom does not have to be Pinterest worthy. So if you're in the phase when you're listening to this where you're trying to set up your room for the year and you're comparing your classroom to everything that you're seeing online, check out episode 101. And then going back further, there's actually 2 more older episodes that I think are worth a listen. One is season 4, episode 1. It's called 5 Back to School Time Traps and How to Escape Them. So if you're short on time right now, check that out. Season 4, episode 1. And there's season 2, episode 1, which is called How to Turn Back to School Anxiety into Excitement. So that's a really good one to listen to when school has not yet started and you're just absolutely dreading it. So feel free to check out season 2, episode 1. So I'll be back next week. If you're still on break, enjoy that. If you're already back in school, Have a fantastic year. I'm going to have a lot of great resources to help support you.